And good morning. I have had a lot of people ask me about the Google Suite Bootcamp that I've been doing with my students. And so I decided I'm going to do a quick screencast and explain to y'all what I would do. So before I go on, I have to explain that this is through my school email and school Google account. So I can't show you a lot of it because it's got my students' information. But I can go through what I can show you and explain the way I taught this to my students. Excuse me. So this is where they start. This link takes them to this presentation, and I give them a bit.ly because it's a little easier for them to type. And I don't have a way otherwise to get them to all on the same place. I'm working on that for next year. We use Canvas, and so next year I'm going to make a course for the library where all of my presentations for the year will be in there for them to refer back to, and also for the teachers. So this is the first screen. Here I talk to them about, I give them a forewarning. We're doing a Google Suite Bootcamp. There's going to be a lot of clicking, a lot of typing. I need you to pay attention, and I need you to focus, and your success in today's lesson is dependent upon your ability to follow directions. I also give them the option that if they are sitting near someone who is going to distract them, to take that time now to move. Remember, I'm a middle school librarian, so nobody ever moved. So then we go on. I share with them the new ebooks that we have. And right now we're focusing on the Lone Star List books because those did just come out. And way to go, Lone Star Committee. These books are awesome and my students are loving them. And then I do a quick book talk over what I'm reading. I just finished King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. I have a vlog on that and it was a great book. So I just do that for them really quickly. And then we go over our day's objectives. So before they leave, they'll know how to get to their drive, how to get to their email. We also do an inbox cleanse. They start a Google Doc, make a copy of a Google Doc, share a Google Doc, edit someone else's doc, and then do all of that with slides as well. And I like to throw in these little GIFs because the kids love them. They think they're fun. And then I keep the link to this presentation down here at the bottom, because we know middle school kids are going to later be like, oh my God, I lost it. I forgot. I don't know where I am. So I just keep that up there and tell them if you get lost at any point, the presentation link is up there on the screen. So this is where the actual meat of the lesson is. This is where we start talking about how to use their portal. So, how to use their drive. So they start at their portal. I tell them to go to their drive, and we start with just basic, very, very basic, which is the waffle. And I tell them, if you were talking to someone near you, that's awesome. If you already know something that we are going to go over, that's awesome, and I'm glad that you do, but don't take someone else's learning moment. And then I told them, I guarantee you, you're going to learn at least one thing new today. And their favorite thing is always this, the waffle. They think it's silly, and they're like, oh my God, Miss Russell, you made that up. And I'm like, no, guys, that's actually what this is called. And so I tell them this is your waffle, which is kind of like your home screen. It's where all of the apps that are available to you in your Google Drive are located. And then I tell them today we're going to focus on slides, email, and docs. So I go through email next. And the reason that I have a screenshot of an inbox and not the actual inbox is because teachers and staff in my district, we don't use Gmail, we use Outlook, but the kids get Gmail. So then we go over how to get to your Gmail because surprisingly, they don't know how to do that. And so we go over how to do that, how often they should be checking their email, putting the Gmail app on their phone, and we talk about the importance of a clean inbox and why it's important to check our email, important information is coming to us. And then we learn about this little guy where it selects all their email, how to do a mass delete, and then I talked about what these different folders are. Next, we do Google Docs. And so what I do here is I tell them this is where we're actually going to start doing things. So we read the instructions together, and then they open the link that says make a copy of this Google Doc. And what they really like is they love how this is a forced copy. And I tell them this is called a forced copy. A forced copy is when you make a copy of something before you even know what it is. So I'll just make a copy of it so you can see it. And it's very basic, very simple. And what I did was I just made this really quick template and they fill each one of those in. So I'm just going to fill these in really quickly. My favorite food is, well, we got to wait for it to load. Waffles. My favorite class is math. My favorite teacher is, this one I'll usually delete and leave them to put it themselves because they like seeing who each other's favorite is. My favorite color is yellow, and my favorite book is The Princess Saves Herself in this. by Amanda Brooks. And then we talk about, remember, we're in ELA, and so each one needs to have a period, each proper noun needs to have a capital, and then we start talking about formatting. So I tell them, how do I show that this is the title of a book? And of course, they answer and they say you can either italicize or you underline it. And so then we talk about Control U or Control I, and I give them the option to choose one for themselves. And then we talk about Control A, which highlights everything. And then we change our font size. I tell them change it to 30. That way when we use it later, it's already big. And then we talk about this More Fonts button, which I learned about at TCEA. And then we go over how this is where all of the hidden fonts are that you're not just automatically given up front. And I start that by saying, who gets tired of only having the same 4 fonts that Google gives you? And they all raise their hands. And I say, cool, click on More Fonts. And they're all like, oh my God, how did we not know this before? And so then we talk about how to sort, the different things that each sort means. And then I give them a few minutes to just go through and choose a font that they like. And I really like this because it gives them a little bit of ownership and it lets them show a little of their creativity and explain why they like the font or whatever. And so I'll choose them, I tell them okay, and then it changes their font. So then we go over Control A again, changing their font color, why we don't change it to white. Again, I'm in a middle school. We have a lot of that. And then we talk about the sharing settings. So then I teach them about the difference between sharing with individual people and using the link. We talk about these different accesses, and what each one means. So the difference between edit, comment, and view. Copy, done. And then I teach them about how to make a force copy. And if you don't know how to make a force copy, what you do is here where it says edit in your link, you just change that to copy. And then it makes a force copy, which is really cool. And the kids think it's awesome. So there's that. And then I tell them, like, this is really ugly, so we're going to work on that later. And then I just Control Z it because they don't need that. But we know that our link is now copied. And then we go back to the presentation. We've filled in the statements, and we're going to share the link to it on this doc. And so this is a shared doc, and I tell them the difference between the doc that you had over here is this is your document. No one can see it until you share it. This document is my document that you are going to edit, but it's going to belong to everyone. And so what this is, once it loads, is each class period gets their own page on this document, and I teach them how to make their name into a link. And I'm just going to let this finish loading. And I pre-made this ahead of time. So what I do, oops. Hold on. So what I do ahead of time is I take this doc and I just put the teacher's name. Oops. And then I'm just going to move all this down so it's not in our way. I put the teacher's name and then I put my name. That way it's already there. Whatever. And then I start numbering. And then I tell the students that you are not to type or click anything until we continue with the lesson. And what I'm going to give everybody a number, and on their number is where they write their name. So then I just count. I tell them I need all your eyes and ears up here. Something I learned that's really fun is I tell them to put their hands on their head so you make sure that they're not clicking or typing. And then I give each one a number and I just count off. And I like to start in the middle of the room and then go out. That way they don't know where I'm going. And so I'll give them each a number. And then I tell them, all right, go type your name. So here's their first name, last name, and they'll all do that. And they'll put it, and then it's really cool because you'll see all of them typing their name at the same time. And then they think it's really cool because they see that as well. And I tell them, okay, so if I do this and I share the link to my document, how does that look? And they respond, it's ugly. You kind of ruined the entire document. And I tell them, I know, right? I kind of made it gross. And so we're going to make our name to be the link instead. So I tell them, you're going to highlight your name. You do Control K. By the way, if you did not know that teaching students shortcuts makes them love you, try it. Kids love shortcuts. They love knowing all the controls or the whatevers because then they feel like they know something you don't. Anyway, so then I tell them about what this is and why this is coming up under the link. And then I tell them Control V. and that changes our name into a link. And then I show them one more time. I tell them I'm going to show you again, and then I'm going to let you do it. We highlight our name, Control K, Control V, enter. And so then they get to see that. And then I go over how I'll pick one or two names down here, and I'll go over how if I click on someone's document, then now I'm able to see their information. And I'll usually pick a student that'll have something, I'll pick a student that'll have something interesting, or a student that I know, and I'll say, whoa, put that on sleep. I will tell them, or I'll pick a student that I know, and I'll say, hey, if I want to know so-and-so's favorite book, then I would click on their name, and so on and so forth. So there's that. And then I'll tell them, let's close this, but leave our document open, and we'll go back to this. So then what we'll do is we'll go over again, what does Control A do? How do I copy all this information? Control C. And then we go back to the presentation. So there's a lot of talking in between. I do a lot of monitoring. I do a lot of walking around. I do a lot of talking to the teacher ahead of time and asking them how many students are in your class so I know what to number by. This doesn't take a ton of preparation once you have the basic presentation completed. So like when I made this actual presentation, took me about an hour or two just to get everything the way I wanted it. And then before every teacher comes in, I just make a new shared doc, this one, for each teacher. And then I make a new presentation, this, for each teacher. Because I try doing where all the 6th graders are on one, all the 7th graders are on another, and all the 8th graders on the other, because I thought it would be really neat. But what it ended up doing was it slowed everyone's Chromebooks down because the slide presentations were so big. And so instead I just switched it to it being one presentation per teacher, which made it easier in the end because when the teachers went back to look at them, they could just see all of their kids all on one. So then I told them, let's read these instructions together using the information from the Google Doc that you copied. Add a slide to the 7th grade Google Slides presentation and add a copyright-free photo from Google to your slide. A lot of my students have taken the business class before they come for this lesson. 6th graders have not. 7th and 8th graders have. And so they already know that part, and I ask them how to do it rather than me teaching them because then they have more ownership. So I tell them, let's open our Google Slides presentation, and then they put their hands on their head because this is where we have to wait a second for the loading. So again, this is a 7th grade teacher's class's presentation. And when I pre-made the presentation before the class started, I made this cover slide, I made my slide, but it just has my name on it, and then I made each class period, so 8th period, 7th period, 6th period, and so on. And what I do after each class, you'll see it over here, is I have it to where the past classes are being skipped, and that's so that the kids can't, to them, they think they can't access it. But it's really just so at the end of class when we go over the slides together and they get their little moment, it doesn't bring the other classes up. So then I'm just going to do that with y'all. I'll show y'all how to do it. I tell them, okay, I'm going to give you a number again, and your number is your slide. And this time we start at slide number 4 because that's usually the first blank one. And I tell them when you get to your slide, you're going to put your first and last name in the top box, paste your information in the bottom box, and then we go on. So now they've already got their text in their slide with the font color they want, the size that should fit, and then we're good. So then I tell them how to change their background color. On the Chromebooks, for some reason, this menu line is not there, and so we go over how to use the slide menu, change your background color. I change it to that, and then we talk about, let me go back here. We talk about the difference between the Add to Theme button and the Done button, and how if you add to theme, then it will change everyone's slide color, and it's not always a fun time then, because then people get mad. But we always talk then about the version history and how if somebody changed everyone else's information or everyone else's slide color, or if they accidentally deleted, how we can go back and restore that. So then from here, we talk about what was our other instruction, and it was to add a copyright-free photo. Then we talk about the importance of copyright-free photos. And then we talk about why we want copyright-free photos and why What is copyright? It's a really good quick refresher on what is copyright, why we don't plagiarize, how we know when we're plagiarizing, and how to be sure that we're not. Then we go to Google Images. So I put that my favorite food is waffles, so I do that, and then I tell them make sure you're doing an image search, but from here we are not clicking anything. So then we talk about how these photos are beautiful and how we don't know if they belong to anyone. So then I tell them, if you have taken the business class, where do we go from here? And so then we do tools, we go down to usage rights, and then we do labeled for non-commercial reuse, and we talk about the differences in these. Between each source. And then we talk about how the choices of images that we got changed and why, and how that changes kind of our options. Then we talk about how, if you are in yearbook or in journalism, why some of the photos that you might want may not show up when you filter it. And we talk about permissions and all that good stuff. So then I tell them on the Chromebooks, I learned that if you double tap, then with 2 fingers, then it brings up the right click menu. But I've also taught them that if you hold down the Alt key and click at the same time, it will bring up your right click menu. And then we do copy image and then paste it onto our slides. I've also taught them how to copy the link image address so that they can give credit for their pictures. We also go over what the importance is for that. And then when they did research, we broke those links down. We found who actually made the picture and so on. And then I also taught them about Unsplash and Pixabay and the importance of those free photos. So then once they're happy with their slides, I tell them to sign out and stack their Chromebooks back in the center of the table. And then from there, once everyone is ready to go, I put this up on the screen, and then we'll go over the entire presentation together, which they always think is fun. So yeah, that's it. It was really easy to put together. The kids really enjoyed it. And then we also have circulation time at the end. And I also did this presentation for the teachers, my new teachers who, and when I say new, I mean veteran teachers who don't really know a lot about their G Suite. They're not super tech friendly. They loved this because it taught them a lot. And they learned a lot about technology, about shortcuts. And I've heard that they really, really enjoyed this lesson. So I hope that this helps y'all. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or comment. And if you enjoyed this presentation and this vlog, please give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe on that YouTube button. All right, guys. Thank y'all. And let me know if you need anything. Have a great day.